And welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to have a look at paper 1, question 2 and question 3 for the GCSE English Language exam. So if we have a look at the schedule, we're on the second day over here where we're looking at paper 1, question 2 and question 3. In the last video, which you can see at the top of the playlist, we had a look at an introduction and an English Language paper 1 overview. Feel free to watch that video before this one if you like. So we're going to have a look at paper 1, question 2 first. Paper 1 question 2 is 8 marks long, so I would recommend spending about 10 minutes on this question. The main task is to analyse how language is used to create effects, so it's a language question over here. The skill you have to demonstrate in this question is zooming in on specific words, phrases and language techniques, and you have to use short quotes to explain the impact on the reader. A main tip I would give you for this question is that 2 or 3 detailed paragraphs is more than enough, and I'll show you how to show your analysis in this question in this video. If we have a look at practicing question 2 then, this is what the question will always look like for the GCSE English Language exam. The only thing that changes is the focus. So here, the focus is Rosabel's bus journey home. I would recommend pausing the video now and having a go at annotating this question by yourself, and then we're going to have a look at it together. Okay, let's have a look together. So if we have a look at the word how, this shows us this question is an analysis question, so we have to look at the effect on the reader. We can't just put quotes down. The fact this question asks us about the writer and language shows that we have to focus on the author's choice of language and the variety of language methods they have used, and we have to discover why they have been used and what effect they create. Rosabel's bus journey home in the question is the focus, so we have to keep our answer fully linked to her journey home. The words and phrases talks about, for example, emotive language, description, vocabulary, and various other language techniques, which we can have a look at in a second. The language features refers to various language methods which the writer might use to create a specific effect on the reader. Sentence forms could also refer to short sentences, punctuation, and many more, which we'll have a look at now. So if we have a look at some language methods together, juxtaposition and contrast are used to highlight differences in a text to create a specific effect on the reader. Metaphors are when you say one thing is like another to create vivid imagery. A simile is when you are doing a comparison in a text using the words like or as. Personification is when we are giving human qualities to non-human things, for example, objects like trees or tables. Alliteration is when we are repeating consonant sounds for a specific emphasis or impact. Emotive language is when words are designed to make the reader feel strong emotions towards a character or a situation in the text. Rhetorical questions are used to engage the reader and make them think about something. And lastly, repetition is when we reinforce key ideas or emotions in a text. I would recommend using these language methods and putting them either on a mind map on your book or on flashcards so you can keep repeating them to help you in the exam. So this is how I would structure my answer to paper 1 question 2. So when you are doing 2 or 3 paragraphs, you have to follow this structure. So it's called a PEAL structure. The P stands for point, and you start your answer with a direct focus on the topic. E stands for evidence, where you support your answer with a quote from the text. The second E stands for explain, where we're going to analyse the quote and explain how our evidence supports our point. The last L is for link, where we connect our paragraph back to the main essay question or the thesis. So here is a specific extract we're going to focus on when we answer this question. So pause the video now and have a go at annotating this extract for me, and then when we press play, we'll analyse it together. Alright, let's have a look at this together then. So the first part I've highlighted here is the quote, fairy palaces. This is a metaphor here, and it's used to romanticize the city and make it look beautiful. This reveals Rosabel's imagination and her longing for escape from the city, and it also suggests a contrast between her harsh reality and her dreams. The next part I've highlighted is opal and silver, which is where the writer is using colour imagery and symbolism. This is because they want to transform the dull reality of Rosabelle's life into something precious and magical, and it shows how Rosabelle sees beauty in her environment despite the hardships she is facing. Blurred and misty are both adjectives as well as sensory imagery, and this suggests lots of confusion and a lack of clarity she is feeling, as well as the dreamlike atmosphere that she is in. It could also reflect her mental state, where she is disoriented and is not sure what's going on. The next part I've highlighted is the description here, where we have her feet were horribly wet and with black greasy mud. Here, the adjectives are used, black and greasy, as well as sensory details, where they're talking about how her feet are feeling. This creates a discomfort and it highlights Rosabelle's unpleasant reality. The harsh adjectives, black, greasy, horribly, contrast with the earlier magical imagery, where we have fairy palaces, opal and silver. The green ones here, sickening smell of warm humanity, shows negative adjectives and synthesia. Synthesia is how she's feeling with her senses. This shows we are mixing smell with human presence, and it suggests claustrophobia and disgust. It emphasizes Rosabelle's physical and emotional discomfort in a crowded bus. The blue here, so we have everybody had the same expression, sitting so still, and we have seemed to resolve into one meaningless staring face. This shows hyperbole, dehumanization, as well as collective imagery. So the dehumanization shows that all the passengers are blurring into one identity and it strips them of individuality. This reinforces how suffocated she feels. The hyperbole also shows alienation and a sense of entrapment. She feels that there's no way out from her harsh reality. So here I've posted a screenshot of my whole analysis and the quotes, as well as how I would recommend structuring your answer. I would recommend pausing the video now and having a go at answering this question using the quotes and the structure. How does the writer use language to describe Rosabelle's journey home? I'd recommend spending about 5 minutes on this and then pressing play so we can have a look at my model answer. All right, let's have a look at my model answer. So here, we read it out and then we annotate it for point, evidence, explain and link. So I've said, the writer uses sensory language to show how unpleasant and suffocating Rosabelle's journey home feels. This is shown through the quote, sickening smell of warm humanity. The adjective sickening here immediately creates a sense of disgust and discomfort, making the bus seem unbearable. Additionally, the phrase warm humanity mixes physical feelings with abstract ideas, suggesting that the crowd is overwhelming and dehumanizing. Through using smell, the writer forces the reader to experience Rosabelle's claustrophobia. This highlights how her journey home is not just physically uncomfortable, but also emotionally draining, which reinforces the bleakness of her everyday life. So I'm going to recommend if you pause the video now and have a go at highlighting for the point, evidence, explain and link in my answer so you can easily see where they fit together. Let's have a look at it together then. So here in orange, I've highlighted the point. So I've said that her journey home feels unpleasant and suffocating. In yellow, I've highlighted my evidence, so my quotes from the text from before. So I've put the quote, sickening smell of warm humanity, as well as the adjective sickening and the phrase warm humanity. Adjective here is always a language technique as well from the mind map before. So I would always recommend using a few of the language techniques to make sure you're getting the higher grades. Explain is where I've shown analysis from the quotes. So I've said it shows disgust and discomfort, as well as the bus being unbearable and the crowd feeling overwhelming and dehumanizing for Rosabelle's journey home. And the last part is the link, where I've said it links to her feeling Rosabelle's claustrophobia, as well as feeling emotionally drained and a bleakness of her everyday life. If we have a look then at paper 1, question 3. So paper 1 question 3 is also 8 marks and I would recommend spending 10 minutes on this one as well. The task here is to analyse the structure of the extract and focus on what the writer has chosen to show and when. So we have to mention shifts here, shifts in setting, character, perspective, or tension, and we have to link our structural choices to the effect on the reader. This is the most important part of this question here. So if we have a go at practicing this question here. This is what the question will always look like for GCSE English Language Paper 1 question 3. And if I say pause it now, and we'll have a go at annotating it on your own, and then we'll look at it together. So when it says the whole of the source, you have to look at the beginning, middle, and end of the source and why it's been structured in such a way. This is what it says. How is it organized? Look at structural texture features, not just language features. Interesting you as a reader says, what is the effect on the reader? So you have to always bring your answer back to this. The next part says why the writer changes the focus as the source develops. So we have to track the shifts in focus and explain their purpose in the text. So if we have a look at some structural methods together, one of them is focus shift. This is when the writer directs the attention of the text to a different element, for example, a change in setting, character, or action. Narrative perspective is when the text is written in either first person, third person, or they can also shift in viewpoint, so it changes the closeness of the character to the reader. Zooming in and out is when the text is moving between big picture and small details, so it controls how the reader visualizes what's going on in the text. Foreshadowing is when there are hints or clues about what will happen later and it builds suspense as we're reading through the text. A contrast, also juxtaposition, is when there's a sudden change in tone, pace, and it also is setting to surprise, shock the reader. Pacing is when there's a use of long versus short sentences, or paragraph breaks, or action versus description to slow down or speed up tension. And the last one here, a cyclical structure, is when the ending reflects or echoes the beginning, either to create closure or inevitability in the text. So here I've posted the whole text. So if you can pause it and have a look and a little read of it, and then I would say have a look at how you would break this text down into beginning, middle, and end. And then we'll have a look at how I've done it. So if we look at how I have separated this text, the pink here I've put into the beginning, the blue is the middle, and the yellow is the end here. So now we're going to have a look at each part individually. So I've put the beginning here and I've focused on what's happening in this part. So in this part of the text, you can pause it and have a little read. I've said the text focuses on Rosabel's poverty and her hunger, as well as the harshness of her surroundings and her perception of the world. And then I'm going to have a look at some quotes which support each of these points happening at the beginning. So if I put these quotes down, for the poverty and hunger, I've picked out the quote. Rosabel thought she would have sacrificed her soul for a good dinner, something hot and strong and filling. For the harshness of her surroundings, I've put the quote. There was a sickening smell of warm humanity. It seemed to be oozing out of everybody in this bus. And for her perception of the world, I've put the jeweller's shops seen through this were fairy palaces, as well as the quote, one meaningless staring face. So now I'm going to put all of this into a paragraph about what's happening at the beginning of the text. This is my paragraph here. So I've said, at the beginning of the extract, the writer focuses the reader's attention on the harshness of Rosabel's surroundings and her perception of the world. This can be shown through the quote, jewelers' shops seen through this were fairy palaces. Here, the metaphor fairy palaces is used to romanticize the city, revealing Rosabel's imagination and longing for an escape from her reality. Perhaps the writer used this metaphor to suggest a contrast between Rosabel's harsh reality and her dreams. This makes the reader feel sympathy for the position Rosabel is in. So now we're going to have a go at breaking down this paragraph to pick out the good parts. So in orange, I've highlighted the point, so I'll focus specifically on the writer and reader and what the focus of the text is on. So here it's on her surroundings and her perception of the world. I've then put my quote down in green. So I've put down the quote, jewelers' shops seen through this were fairy palaces, and I repeated the quote here. The blue here is my explanation, so it's romanticising the city, talking about her imagination and her longing for an escape. And then lastly, in pink, I've put my link, so it suggests a contrast between her harsh reality, dreams, and it makes the reader feel sympathy for the position she's in. If we have a look at the middle, I've said this is what's happening in the middle. So Rosabelle is recalling her long day at the hat shop, and it talks about the arrival of the wealthy red-haired girl and her companion, as well as the choosing and trying of the hat. If we have a look at some quotes to support each of these points, we can pick these out. So for her recalling her long day at the hat shop, we have the quote, "She began to think of all that happened during the day." For the arrival of the wealthy red-haired girl and her companion, I put the quote, "Beautiful red-haired girl and wonderful eyes and a fur coat and white gloves." For the choosing and trying of the hat, I've put 2 quotes down. I've put, "She wanted to know what was the very latest thing in hats," as well as, "She tried on the big black one with the velvet rose and feather and then handed it to Rosabelle." So now, if you want to have a go at writing this paragraph, pause it now, use these points and the quotes, and then press play to see how I've written the model paragraph. If you want to have a look at how I've written the model paragraph, have a look here. So I've said the focus of the text then shifts to Rosabelle's day at the shop and the arrival of the wealthy red-haired girl and her companion. This can be shown through the quote, "Beautiful red hair and wonderful eyes, and a fur coat and white gloves." Here, the description is used to demonstrate the beauty of the wealthy girl. The repetition of the conjunction "and" is used to emphasize the girl's beauty and her wealth, providing a contrast to Rosabelle, who has to work hard to survive. Have a look here and annotate the points, evidence, explain, and link here. So let's have a look then at annotating this paragraph. Here in pink, I've highlighted my point, so the focus on the text about Rosabelle's day at the shop and the arrival of the wealthy red-haired girl and her companion. In yellow, I've highlighted the evidence, so the quotes I've used. Here it's beautiful red hair, wonderful eyes, and a fur coat and white gloves. In orange, I've highlighted my explanation, so I've put the description is used to talk about her beauty, and the repetition talking about emphasizing the girl's beauty and her wealth, and it shows a contrast to Rosabelle, who has to work hard to survive. If we have a look at the end then, I've put the quotes here, and I've also put down my points of what's happening at the end. So I've said Rosabelle tries on the hat at the girl's request, the girl and young man admire it on her, and the girl buys it planning to wear it that day. So if we put down the quotes to support these points, for Rosabelle trying on the hat, I've put Rosabelle turned to the mirror and placed it on her brown hair, then faced them. For the girl and young man admiring it on her, I've put "I must have that," as well as "It suits you beautifully." Then for the girl buying it, planning to wear it that night, I've put down the quotes, "I shall go straight home and put it on before I come out to lunch with you," Rosabelle heard her say. Let's have a go at putting this into a paragraph then. So I have, at the end of the text, the focus of the text shifts to the wealthy girl buying the hat and planning to wear it on a date with Harry. This is shown through the quote, "I shall go straight home and put it on before I come out to lunch with you," Rosabelle heard her say. Here, her speech appears as if she lives a luxury and happy life. This makes the reader feel sympathy for Rosabelle, who has to work long, hard days in the shop and is unable to afford such things. Let's have a go then at annotating this paragraph. So in pink, I've highlighted the points that I've made. So I've put the wealthy girl buying the hat, also planning to wear it on a date with Harry. Here I've highlighted the evidence, so the quotes that I've used. So I've put, "I shall go straight home and put it on before I come to lunch with you." And then in green, I've put down the quote explanations. So I've put down "a luxurious and happy life." In purple, I've linked it back to the focus of the question. So it said here makes the reader feel sympathy for Rosabelle, who has to work long, hard days and is unable to afford such things.